Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, it's 10 o'clock. Just a reminder to everybody that we are live streamed and on YouTube. So if you speak, if you have something to say, come up to the microphone. And with that, we'll call the meeting to order and rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to this wonderful September day, or yeah, I guess it's September, all right. It's December. Anyway, pretty darn nice. Public forum. Is there anybody that wishes to speak at public forum?
More than speak, I have a couple questions. My name is Bobby Butler. I'm rather new up in this area. And speaking to you guys is something that scares the daylights out of me. But I have a couple questions. Last meeting, there was a discussion talking about the tax forfeited property. And as different people talk to me about it, they want to know, how did this happen? I don't have that answer. So I'm going to put it to you guys.
Oh, yeah.
They want to know, especially considering the fact that it was known 18 months prior, how it was a mistake. What is being done to make sure it doesn't happen again? And Mr. Helen, I have a statement to you. After the meeting, you came up to four of us women and you said, at least it didn't cost us any money. And I am frustrated with the fact that it did cost the people that were involved here time, effort, feelings. And I thought that was very, I'm not even sure of the word I want to think, but it doesn't leave me with any confidence in any of you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. We'll talk to you afterwards about that, but we don't comment back and forth during open forum. That's our policy. I'm sorry if I upset you last week.
Offended would be the better word.
Pardon me?
Offended would be the better word.
I'm sorry if I offended you. We'll look to adopt the agenda.
Mr. Chair, there are a couple of additions. If we could add consent agenda item number 1D, Victim Services Grant Contract Agreement Amendment with the Office of Justice Programs. And if we could add consent agenda item number 1.1, new hires, to add Mike Gaynor as the Land and Resources Manager effective December 18th, and Julie Pixler as an Office Support Specialist effective December 11th. And there was a contingency upon the background check. The background check has now come back, so that contingency is not needed. And then there is additional information for agenda item number 3, the strategic planning process PowerPoint.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as revised.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll look for approval of the minutes of November 21st. County board minutes and summary for publication.
Ludwig will move.
Lundgren will second.
Motion by Ludwig, second by Lundgren. Approve the minutes. Any discussion? Not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes of correspondence and reports. The Pine County Surveyor Monthly Report for November of 2023.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Motion by Moore, second by Lovegren. Any discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Brings us to the consent agenda. We've had that in front of us for several days, so.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda, consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion by Lovegren, seconded by Moore. Any discussion, questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Move on to regular agenda, the technology committee minutes. And Josh and I can explain that if you wish.
Actually, Josh can, because I.
Oh yeah, you were not there. Steve can explain it. In my minute page here. Okay, we had a lot of stuff to talk about that it's been on our radar and we know it's coming, but it's important that we pay attention to it. One is a website redesign project, which is really a planned about every 5 years. We need to renew our website information, and it's a forced way to do that. We are changing our what's the right word, David? Instead of .mn.us, it'll be pinecounty.gov. And that's upon a recommendation from smart people at the state that help us with resourcing our IT stuff. So that will kind of happen at the same time. If you have a link on your computer and it's pinecounty.mn.us, it'll automatically go to that .gov for quite a while. I'm not sure how many years, but a while. Next is a computer recycling program. We've used this company before. It's a nonprofit that takes old computers and such and repurposes them. And we've been part of the repurposing where they go back to the public. And so a person who's financially not able to have a computer and they got kids in school, let's say, they can get a computer through this program. Becky, you helped with the dissemination, I believe, of those of last year. But we have quite a few items to get rid of a computer that was used in where we have public data. Is you just don't pull the plug and sell it. You have to wipe it clean. You have to make sure that there's no data on there that could be.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Is there a place that those could be marketed back to, for sale?
That's what this program is.
So they're gonna sell them then?
Yeah.
Or donate them?
Mr. Chair,
yeah.
they would give them away to income eligible people.
Oh, okay.
And so they have a certified process to erase all of the data.
Okay.
And along with that, we have a lot of old hard drives and a lot of old tapes that have our backups that, are 15 years old. We have to destroy them. So we're going to contract with Shred-it to make sure they're destroyed in a manner which meets all standards of getting rid of that kind of stuff. So we don't have people grabbing a old hard drive and extracting somebody's data off it.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
To go back, Commissioner Ludwig, on the recycling program, David, last year they donate like 50 some. They held an event
Yeah.
Right, PCs for People held an event in Pine City that was coordinated with the help of Pine County to distribute 50 computers to folks in Pine County.
Yeah, so a bunch of laptops and desktops.
It's a pretty good program.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yep.
I'm going to .gov. I know the answer to this, but just in case there's somebody out there that does not, do we know how much time is going to be given to employees to be able to start telling people that they've gone to .gov? And I know that there'll be a heads up. I'm just wondering if there's any timeline.
There probably is, but
Yeah,
I can't tell you what it is.
Mr. Chair, there'll be a process laid out once we have a timeline established. And then as Steve was saying, that the old domain will work. So if you type in the old domain, you'll still get to the right place.
And then there's a piece of hardware called the AS400. It's like ancient technology, but it still works. And we've run some programs on it. We've run those programs to death. We still have some programs that we haven't transitioned out of the AS400 yet, but it's at end of life. So we'll probably host those with a hosting service until such time that we're completely, absolutely done with that AS400. It was a wonderful workhorse in its day, but its time is over. Server capacity discussions, of course, were when they talk about 23 terabytes of data storage, that's unfathomable. Just a few years ago, that would take us floors of file cabinets, and it's stuff that we have to save because of the retention rules that we follow under. So we have to keep up with that. And there's the hardware tape destruction. Anyway, anybody got any questions? It's pretty informative stuff. But cybersecurity is, there were a lot of sessions kind of around the fringes of cybersecurity at the AMC conference that we just came from. It's a question we should all be very concerned about. It's a question that Ryan and his team is concerned about on a daily and hourly basis. So I believe we're in a good spot, but it takes one click by somebody to click on one of those sites that gets us into a bad spot with ransomware. One of our neighboring counties got hit with ransomware. I don't know how they got it resolved, but about 2 weeks ago, the sheriff's department in another county got hit. So it's something that can happen. Hopefully we're protected. Land committee.
Yeah, you want me to take that?
Sure. Thank you.
We met with, it was a special meeting because the manager of the Banning State Park and the city, the manager of the Banning State Park, there's 40 acres of, I should back up. Banning State Park took over that piece south of Sandstone and wraps around. And there's a Pine Avenue South, winds down and ends in there. I don't even ever been there, but it turns into dirt. And then it just stops. And there's a little parking area where the kids always go in and swim and fish. It's much more, the falls is in there and the island and all of it is in there. So it is a place where the kids go to recreate. But that land is owned not by the park or the city. It's owned by the DNR Trails and Waterways. So the issue is there's a big Banning State Park sign there, and where their parking is part of the park, kind of. It's right there at the edge. So the city wants to do more with the trails coming from their property from the government road and the creek, old creek plot. So the city's in favor of it going back to the state park, and the DNR is in favor of becoming the trails. That 40-acre piece trails will give it to the park, and it will become park. The issue that arises then is you're going to have a sticker for your vehicle if you go down there on that Pine Avenue South end once you enter into the park. It probably will not interfere with the kids that go there and do fishing and stuff because they walk or they can ride their bikes without purchasing a park sticker. It's going to be that out of town people that come in. The issue is they didn't have a sticker if they went there, but if they went to Banning, then when they said they tried to go in there without a sticker, and they said, well, we didn't need a sticker down there. So they were having this conflicting thing happening on that property. So it's going to be in the legislative this 24th session that the DNR Trails and Waterways is just going to give that to the park, and it's going to become a state park. So we just decided as a land committee that we would make a recommendation to this board, the county board, to when the time comes to have our county administrator just write a letter of support that we support that the city, and then we have no reason to interfere with that. So I would make a motion for that to happen. Recommend Dave to write that letter when the time comes.
Here's the letter. It's in here already. So yeah, it's just needs to be sent. I'll second that.
Okay.
But
now we'll have some good discussion.
One of the things that Clarissa said when she brought it to us is that right now there's 4-wheelers that are going down there and really creating some havoc, and a lot of garbage that's being thrown down there. And so because it just belongs to the state, they don't really have the jurisdiction to fix those things. But if it belongs to Banning State Park, they can go in there and they can clean it up, and it gives them jurisdiction to say, no, you can't be doing that here. So that's a big part of why they want to do it too.
Yeah. The city tried to work with Trails to create an ATV park in there, and they said, no way, it's too sensitive of a area for that. So that got stopped. And so then it becomes, well, let's make it a park.
So it's not our land.
Nope.
The parties
If
involved.
the DNR is going to give land
Parties
to the
involved.
DNR. Yeah.
Want it to happen. They're just looking for a letter of support.
Yeah. And the city, I talked to the city is completely in favor of it happening.
So, yes.
Well, we got a motion by Ludwig, seconded by Lovgren. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. We're going to move on to a strategic planning introduction. David, do you want to?
Sure, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So Richard and Irina Fersman are here. If you want to go up to the podium, and they're going to provide an overview of the strategic planning process and have some conversation and answer your questions. And Richard, we do have your PowerPoint that will pop up in just a minute when Ryan gets that set. And he can advance that whenever you say. If you just let him know to advance, he'll move that slide.
All right. That sounds easy enough. Good morning. Good to meet you all. So as David said, my name's Richard Fersman, and I'll let Irina introduce herself when she comes up. And we are co-founders of Hue Life, which is a company that we put together about 15 years ago under different names, but we are now settled under Hue Life, which is an acronym for Human Understanding and Engagement. And our company has been facilitating and training facilitators across the U.S. and in Europe for over a dozen years. And part of what we do as well, not only training facilitation, but we do a number of facilitations throughout the year and throughout the country and throughout certain parts of Europe on areas of realignment, strategic planning, and goal setting for organizations from small cities all the way up to large counties. Also for commercial enterprises, businesses, nonprofits, and things like that. So the purpose of our meeting here today, get to know us a little bit so you know who we are. And so when we start working together, you're not, who are these people? Who's that bald guy? You'll know. And then outline the strategic planning process a little bit and the timeline involved with that. And Arena's going to be flying that portion. And of course, we're here publicly so we can keep the public involved and public informed as to what we're doing and why we're doing it, and then answer your questions. So a little bit about, and maybe the next slide. And then the next one, 2 introduction slides. So I'm going to have Arena come up here and talk a little bit about herself and the process. Before I did that, just a little bit of, so you know a little bit of my background. I actually started with the state as an intern after the Navy and doing my college in economic development. And then was hired by the state in economic development, went on to Watonwan County, Minnesota, where I was economic development coordinator, did a couple of different coordinator jobs, and then went into city management. In 2006, left the field of city management to start my own, along with Arena, in the public education, or I should say public development of leaders. And worked in the recruitment industry for over a dozen years, helping counties, cities find their next administrators and managers, fire chiefs, those type of positions, and really saw the need for accelerated development of our leaders. And so that's where I've been concentrating along with Arena, our focus on that. And a big part of what we discovered with hiring is when you hire an administrator, when you hire those type of positions, they're most successful if there's a strategy behind it. And so it's exciting to see that you're putting a vision and a strategy, a strategic plan together to deal with the issues that you face. And so with that brief introduction, I'll pass it off to Arena.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
So my name is Irina Firstman, second half or a partner in this journey with Richard and now with all of you. We're going to be together from now until January, just learning, talking, and doing some homework. Our retreat is going to be in January for 2 days, and then the follow-up after that. So overall, the approach is very simple. What do we know? Why do we need to be strategic in the first place? What's going on in the environment that suggests that we need to do things differently? And then think together, what is it that we can influence with our actions towards the different future we want to create? And then finally, who's going to do what? So that's a very high level overview of the process. I come from education, immigrant from Ukraine. It's been now 21 years here in the United States. We live in Maplewood, by the way, so only 45 minutes. If you're speeding, if you're doing okay, then an hour. So it's exciting to be in this field of work because in my experience, I have witnessed myself as a teenager, the collapse of Soviet Union and experienced what it looks like and feels like when government doesn't work. And so that what inspired the birth of our company and really working on public sector to really help both the citizens to be involved and understand what voice they have and how can they control their future, but also officials appointed and elected to work together as a team. And so it's very easy to get elected and be in a position to drive one interest. It's really hard to be together working on the interest of the whole. And so I think that's what our passion is about and what our process hopefully helps to achieve. So if you're looking at the deadlines and timelines and steps in the process, I just want to make sure that we remind ourselves and each other that in the end, it's for the common good. In the end, we might be having some discussions that are uncomfortable because we see things differently and approach things differently. But we have to remember that any idea, good or bad, is not worth it if it's not implementable, right? And in order for us at this county level to implement anything, we need to get more buy-in, both from ourselves as a team, employees, but also from the community. So I think that looking at previous work, you've already done so much great work. There's so many great projects underway and have been accomplished. This time around, it's a little bit more higher level. getting a little higher in the sky and looking at the bigger picture. So we'll spend our first phase, which is month of December, collecting that data, understanding what did work, what didn't work, where have we stalled, what was challenging, in what way were we successful, and what was the key to that success. So we can learn from those past experiences, and we will do interviews during that time. So starting December 11th is when we will schedule one-on-one interviews with you individually, and we will learn. We'll learn what is it that you want to see different. How do you see strategy first from the terminology and perspective of what it means to you, but also as we're working on the content in terms of the actual things to do, what is it that drives you? What's your interest? What do you value? How do you want the county to be different? And what does it take for this group to get on the same page about it? So that will drive our agenda for the retreat. So when you look at phase 2, creating vision and strategies, that is an outline of what the 2-day would look like. We will review our interview notes, make sure that everybody on the same page about where we're similar and where we're different, because there wouldn't be fun if it wasn't both, right? Certain things we're gonna have to argue about and debate, and that's great. So that will inform what the shared vision would look like. In 3 to 5 years, what do we want to see as a result of us being in this role of leading the community? Once we describe and articulate that, then we can start thinking about how do we get there? And so the question of the how will be on the second day of our 2-day retreat, leading to specific goals, specific objectives, and the timeline for accomplishing those. And when we end, we will touch on the roles and responsibilities, not only of the people implementing those goals, but also the role of this body to make sure that we support, fund, motivate, and quite frankly, review and evaluate once in a while how we're doing on those goals. So what is accountability would be the last question. How do we make sure we hold each other accountable to making that work doable and practical and realistic? And then phase 3 really is about working more closely with staff and helping to, as much as we can. You may or may not need that support at that point because you've done so well really executing on goals in the past. Sometimes it's helpful to take a fresh look at it and see how are we planning forward. So the execution question will come in phase number 3. At that point, we'll provide our report and then see if there is any more help that you need to get moving. We'll also like to come back 3 months from now and say, hey, what have you done? So one check-in is kind of our part of the process. It's not an additional project. It's still part of the same project. Come back and say, what have you accomplished in Q1? So as you know, it takes 93% of fuel to launch the rocket. And once it's in orbit, it's fine, right? So that's what we will try to help, is to get the initiatives off the ground. So with that, I think the next step in this particular PowerPoint is the metaphor, which I kind of touched on in the time frame of the interviews. So we are now December.
Next slide, please.
December 4th, 5th, 6th, kickoff. Today is December 7th. There it is. We are here. December 11th next week. Hopefully we'll get those interviews completed before Christmas. So we have time and you have time to relax and do what you need to do with your families and then come back. We will share the results probably the last week of December. So you have time to think about it, read through the notes that we would put together and prepare yourself for January. January 9 and 10 is a 2-day. I'm wondering, are we going to be in this space, in this room?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. So we'll see you again in January 9 and 10 in person, and we'll spend 2 time together going through the process. And our deadline and hope that by February, end of February, we will be completed with reporting and perhaps 1 or 2 iterations of the report based on your feedback. So you'll have a chance to take a look at it before it will be finalized. And that's it. Before we go to the metaphor, what are some questions?
You laid it out really well.
Thank you.
To schedule the interviews, you'll be reaching out individually to everybody.
That would be our preference, so we can get it scheduled faster. right? So you will get us, we already have all the contact information. So we'll just reach out to you. Now you know who I am, who Richard. One of us will talk to one of you one-on-one.
Sure.
Depending on your schedules and our schedule, we'll see what works.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Great. Awesome. The Navy guy.
Thank you. Yeah, Navy guy. Any other Navy guys in here? I just don't know.
He left.
Okay, left. Well, of course, it's an important day in history too. December 7th.
Yes, it is.
And actually, a county commissioner of my when I was in Watonwan County served on the USS Arizona on December 7th. This is his last day in the Navy, or so he thought. And when the Arizona went down, he was one of the few survivors, and just saw his internment at the USS Arizona, where after he was done serving in the county and he passed away a few years ago, he had the honor of joining his shipmates in Pearl Harbor. And so it's pretty touching. I invite anybody to ever, if you're ever in that area, go there. And it's quite a moving experience for anybody. On a different, if we could switch the slide, then I just thought this, a flight analogy might be everything that I've learned about you is that this is probably the way you operate on almost all levels. But the reason I thought it might be nice today is that vision and purpose. If we take a look at the role of the board of commission, or the and then the board of the role of staff, and we take a look at that graph and sort of the center there where it shows the black part of the graph and the blue part. Blue being the role of staff, black being the role of the commission. So much of your responsibility lies in that purpose setting, that vision setting for the county, for the community. You're the ears and eyes and the elected of the community. You have the voices of the community. You have the vision of the community, and that is such an important part to share. When we start getting into that part was strategic goals, then we'll set the vision, we'll hit goals, we'll hit priority items. We're all in this during that 2-day retreat. As we get away from the 2-day retreat and implementation, you can see what happens. We start getting lower to the ground. We get to that 20,000 foot level, where now the staff is taking on the majority of the role, and now it's being handed over to the county for more of an oversight. How are we doing? Let's keep that fire burning. Let's keep focus. And then as we get closer to the runway, it's all, the staff is implementing the vision that you set forward. And so I just wanted to use that as just a reminder of how we're looking at it as well, and how critical your input is at this point. And it's probably your number one job is to have that vision for the community. So with that, enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much. And I wanted to say very much thank you for the invite here, for allowing us to participate with your county. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
And thanks for the reminder of December 7th. I grew up in a house that my mom and dad never let us forget. Their families were deeply impacted by World War II, and that December 7th, that day that was live in infamy, was a big part of my childhood growing up. So thanks. So look forward to hearing from these folks. We'll move on to commissioner updates. HRA, EDA.
Yeah, it was a pretty quick meeting. Leslie gave a presentation. Oh, good news is both departments are full. The Finlayson and Sandstone is full, which there was some vacancies there for a month or two. Leslie gave a presentation on the resolution authorizing the Minnesota City Participation Program, and it was a generally quick meeting, not much going on. And then she gave a presentation and a mapping of the broadband, which I wasn't part of that committee thing, but then there's some requests for proposals, I think, or for the grant stuff, and both SCI Cable and ECE applied for those, and they're overlapping it. Some of the parts of the area, but different pieces too, you know. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Snake River Watershed.
Yeah, I got the privilege to go to that one. It was,
How'd it go,
I
Josh?
deserved it because I gave you the committee, so it was very interesting. I talked till I was blue in the face trying to convince two other commissioners to do dissolution, and I told David, I said, I actually thought I had one on board at one time, and we didn't. So we introduced our proposal to pull out, and ours and Aiken to pull out of it and take our money, and they voted it down. So they didn't allow us to leave the committee. So their big fear is that one watershed, one plan is going to fail, and they want this board still there in case it does. And with that is a ton of overlap. They're spending money to keep it going. And if they wanted that, that was ours and Aiken's idea, is to just say, then you guys can do it, and we're gonna leave this, which we're already in one watershed, one plan. So and they decided they didn't want to allow us to leave. So possibly coming forward, it sounds like I think Canaba County Board, he didn't want to make that decision on his own. He went back to his board, or was going back, and I think they got a meeting today. And they were gonna see what they say on that. We might be able to still leave, but I don't think I made any friends. So it is what it is.
So do the same people are the same people gonna serve on the one watershed, one plan that sit on the?
Mille Lacs County's biggest fear was not having enough say in one watershed, one plan.
Wouldn't their people be the same people though?
You add soil and water to it. On the Snake River Watershed Management Board, it's just commissioners. But this is the point I made to them. They haven't joined the one watershed, one plan, so they don't have a say in it, period. So unless they join it, it was just, everything was contradictive, and I pointed it all out, and they didn't like that. So whatever. It is what it is.
Life will go on.
And his comment was, that money's been sitting here for how long? What if it sits there for another year or two? And Aiken County's commissioner said, well, I got to go to my taxpayers and say, this money's sitting there doing nothing. Why does it need to sit there?
So what is that going to look like if we're going to go with the one watershed, one plan, and our boundary sits with the Snake River? We're going to be doing our work under the one watershed, one plan, which is gonna really could affect their work too, right? They should be on board with it.
They don't have any projects out there right now either. So they had one and it got canceled.
Only project they canceled the contract on it. So
it's the second year into the contract and the person hasn't done anything. So but I mean, they don't have any projects that they're working on. They don't have, it's silly.
Well, thanks for doing that.
Specifically, one of the things that was said is, I don't want to give up the power. And that was a county that said that. Yeah, it was. And the power to have clean water, and I don't. There's some different thinking, I'll say.
Can you refresh my memory on the amount of money it was? What
we were gonna get, 40-some thousand?
Yeah, I don't have the number off the top of my head.
So we were trying to get $40-some thousand back, correct?
Yeah. what
Just sitting there.
Yeah.
what they would have is, they got 100 and some thousand. I do have it somewhere here. And I can even connect with you.
I think the sad part to me is
Oh, yeah.
we've been involved with the Lower St. Croix River One Watershed One Plan. And we've been doing projects now for about 2.5 years. And matter of fact, a farmer that lives a half a mile south of the Pine City High School next week will receive a state award for being the Conservation Farmer of the Year because of the projects that he's been doing on his farm through One Watershed, One Plan. Because that's where the money is coming from now. So they're doing a lot of projects.
And Mr. Chair, I did find the numbers, Josh. I don't know, did you find them? If you want to give them.
Yeah, 42,272.70.
What would we do with, what would be the plan with that money then if we got it back? What would we?
That would just be board discussion, but we're gonna get it back. I mean, well,
We'll get it
I guess
back.
I can't say that
We'll
for
meet in
sure,
January and see if we can get it back.
but it's our money. It was money we appropriated. So, and
Yeah,
that's what's
we
funny.
could use that money for somewhere else.
Yeah,
right.
What's funny about it is,
42,000.
Snake River Watershed Management Board cost us, I think, about $9,000, $10,000 a year to be part of that. Where One Watershed, One Plan is fully funded. It doesn't take any, I mean, we don't budget for it. Granted, it's tax money, but, that comes from the state. So, and that was part of the concern was one of the commissioners is like, what happens when the money dries up? Cause it's I don't know the exact, Kelly, maybe you do, is it $1.5 million budget or over 2 years, or is it 500? I don't remember. I got
For the Snake River, it's more, I think it was over 2
million
for the,
per
yeah.
biennium, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's all fully funded and it's budgeted out. Like I said, if the money ain't there, we budget ahead of time for it. That ain't going back on the counties. We just don't do the work like we've done with other stuff.
So could Knabec decide to
Release it.
yeah.
And it sounds like both counties want to come over to one, well,
Mille Lacs hasn't signed up.
they want to continue a dissolution of Snake River Watershed Management Board, but they didn't want to rush into it. Well, we've been working on One Watershed, One Plan 3-4 years. How long have you been on that board? 2, 3? 2. And we started before that.
Who's the commissioner? It's
And which one?
that was
For
gonna go
Knabec.
back to the board.
Roger. Oh no, for Knabec, I don't even remember. His name.
Peter.
He's new. Just still active.
Well, and part of the conversation the month before was if we allow these 2 counties to go, or if we dissolve this management board. I talked to the attorney and the attorney said that if Knabec or if Pine and Aiken want to pull, we can give them their money back. So they got the attorney's approval to do that. That was a big part of the discussion back in November. And then for them to go in December and say,
I
well,
remember
we
you
didn't-
reporting on that.
yeah, and December they went to the meeting and said, we haven't talked about that. It's like, how could you not talk about it? That was a big part of what happened.
Which is funny, and I haven't connected with you, and I apologize. But what's funny is they were pissed because I brought this up, and without putting it on the agenda, and they had no idea about it. So that's funny because they did have an
It was a
idea
big
about it,
conversation.
and the reason I brought it up is because the vote for dissolution failed. And otherwise, I wouldn't have brought it up. If we would have voted to do dissolution, it would have been fine. We would have got our money and been done. It would have been over. But because it didn't, that's why I brought up the other deal. So
That's the right move.
More to come.
Yeah.
Well, now they're aware of it.
I don't know. I just would think you could.
I think they were very well aware of it, just didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they just made a mistake.
We'll move on to the site visit from DHS to Pine County. And before Terry talks, I just want to say a big shout out and a thank you to Becky, Beth Jarvis, and Bonnie for the for the great presentations that they gave. I think for the first time in the history of the state, the leadership at DHS got to sit through a demonstration of the SSIS program that they make our workers work with on a daily basis and see how archaic it is. And so that was awesome. And I want to give a huge shout out to Terry for the organization of getting all the people in the room. We had the commissioner of Department of Health and Human Services. We had several deputy commissioners there. We had the commissioner of Health and Human Services from the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe there, and several of their workers. So I think we had what Terry keeps saying, you have to have all the people in the room if you're going to solve the issue, instead of having 2 out of 3 people in the room, and then it's always go back and well, then the narrative changes. So we had everybody in the room. I know Terry is working on, and we had the leadership from legislative leadership from our state association there, who they have an understanding of what we're going through. So we're not just doing this for Pine County, we're doing it for all the Health and Human Services people in the state that have to work with that program, and especially the counties in the state that work with ICWA children. And that's where the real hang up is. So Terry, thanks for getting that organized. And
did some light bulbs go off and they realized what a problem it was?
I think so. You know, you never know what happens once they get back to St. Paul, but at least for the moment, I think the thing is the follow-up visits now. So we don't let them forget. It's a huge undertaking to write a whole new program. I liken it to when they redid the driver's license thing, MNLARS thing. It didn't come out of the box just right, and they had a failure, but they got it right. This is even bigger than that, because the money is bigger. When we have social workers that are spending 50% of their time doing data entry, there's something wrong with the system. There just is. And so
I want to shout out to Becky and to Angie, because they're really the ones that put the people at the table. And your staff was amazing. To sit there and watch poor Bonnie do the data entry, and so everybody had to sign a statement saying that they would be confidential on the information, because we did real children. We did a real child. Half an hour she spent trying to show us how the system works, and she got 20% of one child done, because the system is that bad.
Is it redundancy in the program, re-entering same data? And
well, it doesn't even move. And we had to emphasize that the Wi-Fi in this building is really good. It might be bad in Pine County, but it's really good here. This is the state system. You just sit and watch the blue circle of death, they call it, go around, you know, when you're waiting for something to come online. That's what she does for a huge part of her day, is watch that so that she can get the kids entered, which is a huge waste of her time when she wants to be helping families.
And the problem is Bonnie has 24 hours from the time a case is reported to get this information out and get it to the appropriate agencies and people.
Statute driven.
Or we get dinged. And so, and then if you get dinged, they cut back on the amount of funding they give you.
One thing that I heard afterwards was Commissioner Herbst has never left the city of St. Paul to go meet with a county on anything, and she was there. Senator Rarick was there, Jeff Dotseth was there. We had such amazing representation. And then, you know, having your senator there saying, I tried to take this to the table to get some help a few years back, and DHS stopped me and said, everything's fine, we're good. And I mean, that was pretty humbling, I think, for them to hear. that, here he's tried and this is where we're at. But I think of elections, our election system, man, if anything happened with that thing, it was fixed, like boom. And here we're dealing with way more families than we did with elections, and they can't fix this. It's just low priority. It's sad. But it was a very good meeting. I think it was a good outcome. Now the push is to keep it going forward.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for pushing on it.
NLX.
NLX is always interesting. So I sat in on the first meeting, and that was with Senator Jen McEwen and Representative Krugel, and they talked about how there's going to be 4 trains every day. So you're going to have 4 trains going to Duluth and 4 trains coming back. You're going to have 2.5 hour travel time, which I think you guys had come back and talked about after the meeting that you had with them. At the NLX meeting, they were talking a lot about they went to DC in October and talked with Klobuchar and Smith, and they felt that it was very successful, but they're still waiting for federal money. So until they get, I don't know how far they're going to be able to go. They said that there's 90 pairing cities with Amtrak, and the NLX was the only city that they supported, or the only tracks that they supported. I suppose it would be Minneapolis. So it looks like the Amtrak is coming on board to support them, which is something that they were looking for before. They're talking about getting a virtual train experience where you can wear the virtual goggles and pretend that you're riding on a train type of thing. Sandstone City withdrew from financially supporting the NLX, but the city of Cambridge came back on, which is.
They removed themselves, didn't they?
Pardon?
They pulled out, didn't they?
The city of Sandstone?
Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Okay, AMC annual conference, which we all were there.
I'll talk about the one that I liked the best.
Okay, what did you like the best?
Well, I liked a lot, but I went to the one for restorative justice, and it was done through Carleton County. And Carleton County, they have a program, but they don't use their probation officers. And I'm not supporting not using our probation officers. Please don't get me wrong. But it was interesting that talking to them and hearing how they do the system, which is a lot like we do here. But the thing that really hit me was it was either 3 or 4 full-time probation officers that worked with youth in Carleton County. And when they got their restorative justice program going, they're down to less than 1 full-time employee that work with youth, because they do that great of work. Our system does that great of work. And just hearing what that's saving our county huge, what our probation officers are doing. And so just a shout out to them again, saying thank you for what you do for our families and our kids. But hearing them say it that way really affected how it affects our budget, what they're doing also. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, I think my takeaway was kind of a recurring theme we heard was the power of positivity. Mm-hmm. and we have an influence one way or the other on the staff and each other. And we have to remember that. The session I went to on artificial intelligence was, I would call it a little underwhelming, except there were some nuggets there that I thought were worth noting. And one is that it's here. We're going to deal with it. How we deal with it, and if we're smart enough to use it to our advantage, it's going to be a good thing. And I don't know that any of us know 5 or 10 years from now the impact that artificial intelligence will have on county government. Mm-hmm. And little old Pine County. How is that going to happen? But I think, you don't have to think very long and hard to think about the communications comes to mind that we put out that we could be helped with, or that in the hiring process, they're already using artificial intelligence to help narrow down the scope from candidates, and I think we're already using artificial intelligence to heat and cool this building in some way, shape, or form, and that'll just get better. So, anybody else?
Yeah, I only made it down there for the one day on Monday, but the positivity thing, that is a huge thing we got to always keep in mind as a board. The one thing I always take away is how fortunate we are for our staff and our leadership in this county. When you sit around the table and you talk to other counties, or you sit in meetings and talk to other and listen real world issues out there, we are very, very fortunate here in Pine County. I will just say that, and I thank every one of the employees here. On top of that, the other reoccurring thing I heard a ton of was labor negotiations, and that was like everything was out there. So I'm very fortunate to be on our labor negotiations, me and Matt, and I'm very fortunate to see it be almost done. So it was very interesting listening to other people and the approach and how they're handling it, and the complete banging their heads against the wall. I didn't hear very many success stories about labor negotiations at all. So, but it was a hot topic of everybody. So.
Somebody else? I think one thing I had breakfast one morning with people from 3 other counties that I never knew before. And sometimes I use the phrase, we think little old Pine County. The 3 commissioners I was having breakfast with, if you added their populations together, didn't equal Pine County's population. We're not way on the small end. We know we're on the big end geographically. One of the people that were not a commissioner was sitting there was a county engineer. I asked him how many miles of road they had. They had 300. I said, we have more than 300 miles of gravel road and another 400 miles of paved roads. So, it's just the scope of what we have to do to provide services. Let's see, Facilities Committee was canceled. Greater Minnesota Parks and Trails was going on at the same time we were electing people at AMC, unless somebody got on that call. Jack?
Thank you to Sam, who was at SHAC and was able to do our voting and stuff for us. We listened to it on the way home, and then when I got home, I finished listening to the meeting. There was a committee that was put together to figure out what to do with the money that the state gave to the counties, and they gave it through SHAC. And Sam was on that committee, which is amazing to have somebody that is willing to do it. They thought that it would be 4 meetings. It ended up being 8 meetings. So a huge shout out, because that's way more time than you thought. They put together a good package, that it'll benefit all the counties. So every county is going to get so much money to be used for public health. And then they came up with different ways, how healthy your county is. If you're down on the bottom scale, you'd get a little bit more, and kind of came together to figure out how to make it so that it will benefit the most with what they got. So just thank you to her. And that was a big part of what the meeting was about yesterday, was getting that passed and the approval to do that. So.
Thanks. Any other?
I have one other. Yeah. I did be on the battlefield for veteran addiction. It was something that was put on through NACO. And the thing that really hit me is from October of 2020 to October of 2021, we lost 105 military people to drug overdose, which is
in Minnesota.
No, this would be nationally. Yeah, thank you for asking that. Which is really huge. And they said fentanyl is still the driving force of the crisis. It used to always be prescriptions. You'd hear about the prescriptions. Prescriptions are like gone. You don't have to worry about that anymore because fentanyl is so bad. 1 in 5 warriors have had serious suicidal thoughts, and 1 in 4 just in the past month, which is saying that they're really struggling. A veteran normally has to wait 6 weeks to 6 months to get an appointment to see somebody for mental health, which is too long. Treatment works. 72% of the people that went through treatment have shown improvement. Treating PTSD significantly reduces drug addiction and alcohol addiction. And now they can do virtual meetings. So you can sit at home and do actual virtual meetings with people from all over.
If you have broadband.
If you have broadband, yeah. Yeah, that's not something you really want to take into the library, right? We need to get that broadband. But so they're doing so much more to help our veterans, but we still need to support Mindy and her department on how we can help her to support our veterans, because there's a lot of struggles going on for them.
I got one more shout out, and that's to our veteran service officers, because I'm walking down the hall at the Regency, and this lady who's a county commissioner from Waseca County stops me and says, Pine County. She goes, I got to tell you a story. My son is going to Pine Tech. He's a recently returned deployed soldier. And the veteran service officers in Pine County did so much for him to make him feel welcome back from deployment and to get him all of the benefits that he was entitled to, and to make sure his transition into a civilian school was what it should be. I thought that's pretty awesome. Completely unsolicited person that I don't know. I don't know this person, but I thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, that brings us to the end of our agenda. We have no other business. I will declare this meeting adjourned, except for the fact that we want to make sure we look at all of our meetings coming up. It's a kind of a amended monthly schedule because of the Christmas, New Year's holiday coming up. So make sure you pay attention. I know several meetings get changed, including this one. So,
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
We're back here tonight at 6, I think.
Yeah.
6 o'clock, we're back here for Truth and Taxation.
And then one other thing, did I miss on this addition and corrections? Did we go over the pay grades and salaries? Or is this, did I miss something there? We didn't actually vote on
It
that.
was consented.
They want consent.
We went consent, so we didn't have to discuss pay rates.
Oh, at the time we could have, JD.
Oh, okay. Then I
If
must
you
have
wanted
missed it.
to, you could say pull it. You know?
Okay, just, I remember at the last one, we had to clarify some, and we went over it. Okay.
You know, if you see that and we go to consent, like this, you can do anytime you want. We can remove something from consent, move it to the regular for discussion.
Okay, got it. I just going up to that last meeting. We
No, that's fine.
make sure that they
Thanks,
were.
everybody. We got potluck with the staff coming up. So